Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. And in this episode, we're going to be asking the question of, can you lose muscle and gain fat at the same time? Now, this is referred to as body recomposition, where you maintain your weight, but you improve your aesthetics by losing fat and building muscle so you overall look bigger and leaner, even though you are at the same weight. Now, first of all, is it actually possible? Well, yes, in the short, it is actually possible, but we're going to have to take a bit of a deeper look and find out what avatar of people that this is actually suitable for, what we need to do to be able to recomp, and a few more other things that we're going to talk through in today's video. Now, first and foremost, the two main avatars that this applies to is someone with a higher initial body fat percentage. So generally when we're talking about a higher body fat percentage, we're talking about for males sort of 18 plus, and then generally with females, you sort of add an extra 10% on that. So sort of 28% body fat and up. So 18% and up for males and sort of around about 28% and up for females. So if you are someone who has a body fat percentage higher than sort of 18%, now this is just as an average, okay? Can be some people that this applies to a little bit leaner. Some people you might have to be a little bit higher up on the body fat, but generally around that 80% and up, you're going to be more likely to be able to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Now, the main reason for this being is we just have more energy reserves, and your body is more likely to build muscle and use energy to build muscle, seeing as though it has a lot more energy reserves. It's just the same if you had a bank account that was full of money, you're going to be more inclined to want to do things, spend money, but obviously as you start to lose money and your bank account starts to reduce, the same as your body fat starts to reduce, you generally become a little bit more frugal with what you're actually spending your money on. And the same goes with the body. The leaner you get, the less inclined your body is to spending energy on building muscle and all those things. So you're going to be less likely, the leaner you are, to be able to have this recomp effect. Newbies is the second avatar of people. So newbies, so beginners being exposed to resistance training for the first time, because the stimulus that they're receiving from resistance training is such a big driver when it comes to building muscle, and it's such a big driver for the adaptation of building muscle. They're more likely to be able to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, just purely because that new stimulus is just so powerful when it comes to forcing the body to adapt. Now, these are obviously two avatars that probably won't apply to everyone listening to this, but there is good news. There is definitely ways for more intermediate and advanced individuals who are a little bit leaner to still be able to get this recomp effect. But I think we need to discuss the realistic outcome of what's going to happen with recomping. A lot of people think that they can recomp from, say, like 20% mark all the way down to 10%, where you've got complete striations on most muscle groups and your abs are fully developed. This is probably not going to happen, just purely if you look at the maths of it. If you're an 80 kilo individual and you have a 20% body fat, that means you have 16 kilos of fat. So to get to 10% body fat, you're going to have to lose 8 kilos of fat. Now, this is pretty easy. Losing fat is pretty easy, okay? Now, I know a lot of people will be like yelling at the screen with this, but realistically, if you get into a calorie deficit, it's pretty easy to be able to lose 8 kilos of fat, and you can do it relatively quickly. But it's the gaining of muscle, because we're looking at a recomp, because we're looking to maintain a similar sort of weight, you're going to have to put on 8 kilos of muscle. Now, unless you're an enhanced individual, and that's probably another avatar that you could chuck in there for someone who has the ability to lose fat and gain muscle, is someone who is taking anabolic steroids. But outside of that, if you're a natural, to put on 8 kilos of muscle, that's going to take you a long time. That could be like 3 to 5 years of solid training, even for a potential new beginner who's going to be getting newbie gains. So I think there just has to be a realistic approach. Even if you just look at the mass of that, it's going to take years of consistent effort as well to be able to put on 8 kilos of muscle and lose 8 kilos of fat. And plus, as I spoke about earlier, the leaner that you get, the less likely your body is want to give up energy to be put in to invest into building muscle. So pretty unlikely that scenario is ever going to happen. But something that's a little bit more realistic is something like going from 15%, where sort of you might have a little bit of blurriness around the abs. Maybe they're sort of popping through a little bit, but you got a lot of blurriness there. And potentially in 3 months, you know, you don't want to really change too much weight. You want to put on a little bit of muscle. It's pretty realistic that you could probably put on 1.6 kilos of muscle and lose 1.6 kilos of fat, taking you from 15% to 13%. Maybe your abs are coming down a little bit. Maybe your arms are a little bit more poppy. That is definitely a realistic scenario of something that can happen. I just think that people hear recomposition, they can go from where they are now at 80 kilos at 20% body fat to being 80 kilos jacked. It's probably not going to be, that's probably never going to happen. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very, very highly unlikely. And I've never heard of anyone doing it realistically because it would take so long. So let's get into how we can actually do this with being the more realistic options. To say if you're taking from 15 to 13%, losing about 1.6 kilo fat, gaining about 1.6 kilo of muscle. All right. Now, high protein diet is definitely going to be on the cards. Now, this might be a little bit higher than what I've recommended before. Main reason for this is Chris Barakat. He is a online coach. I think he's based in the US. I might link his Instagram down below this. You can definitely go check it out. He's got a lot of success stories with his clients of recomping. And a lot of the success of that he attributes to being on a bit more of a higher protein diet. And he's backed this up with a little bit of research. Pretty compelling. I'm not going to go into the details of it. And pretty interesting. It's a little bit higher than what like the industry standard. Generally, the industry standard is 1.6 to 2.2, whereas we're looking at sort of 2 grams to 2.8 grams per kilo body weight per day. So a little bit higher. When we're talking about recompositioning, it's sort of like you need to be ticking all boxes. So potentially something that is insignificant when it comes to sort of like research standards might be a little bit more significant when we're talking about 1%ers, okay, when we're talking about recompositioning. So could be something to buy in. I feel like there's nothing wrong with having a bit of a higher protein diet anyway. Some other macronutrient considerations that we should take into account is fats, okay? Now, 0.7 grams per kilo of body weight. Now, this is a minimum. Just so we should be hitting a minimum of this per day just to make sure that we're getting enough fat soluble vitamins, also to make sure that we're covering hormone synthesis and we're not getting any ill effects from not having enough fat when it comes to hormones. So ticking off 0.7 grams per kilo body weight per day as a minimum would probably be a good idea to start there. And then for the remaining calories we want coming from carbohydrates, as we're going to have to fuel our intense weight training sessions, as weight training is going to be the real driver of how much muscle mass that we actually build. So, for example, here, if you're an 80 kilo individual, your target protein is probably looking around 160 to 220. Fat intake, 56 grams and above, and then the rest of that maintenance calories coming from the carbs. Okay, so obviously we want to be around maintenance calories to maintain our weight. So that gives us obviously a little bit more of a calorie target there, a little bit higher calorie target than what you would see for a calorie deficit, obviously. So we've got a little bit more wiggle room. When it comes to training strategies, okay, now, if you're looking to do something like recompositioning, which is pretty hard to do, I'm not going to lie, it's not going to happen for everyone. You need to make sure that you're ticking all boxes, as I said before. So 4 to 6 training sessions per week is probably more likely what it's going to take to be able to facilitate this outcome. So definitely looking probably more on the 5 to 6, unless you're sort of a newbie, you could probably go on the 4, but you're probably looking at 5 to 6 training sessions per week. 8 to 20 sets per muscle group. Now this can be adjusted due to your preferences. So underdeveloped muscle groups, we can probably put in a little bit higher range, so up around that sort of 20, like 15 to 20, and then more well-developed, sort of around that 8 to 12. So for me, I have a well-developed chest. I generally sit at about 9 to 10 sets per chest, even in my max sort of muscle growth phase or muscle build phase. But everyone's different, you know what I mean? And I suggest that smaller muscle groups like delts, arms, things that recover well, calves, abs, you could probably put on a little bit higher sets per week as well, just because recovery demand isn't as high as a larger muscle group. Training intensity, we need to be making sure that training is really, really intense. So each set should be taken within 2 reps of failure or 2 failure, especially for smaller muscle groups. You can take it for 2 failure as the fatigue cost isn't as high, but training needs to be intense to be able to make sure that we're getting enough stimulus to facilitate the demand to grow muscle. And then for each muscle group, should be training at least twice a week. And again, potentially for the smaller muscle groups, we can train more as the as the fatigue isn't as demanding on those. Then for the last bit, lifestyle factors. Sleep is crucial, super important. I'm definitely going to do a video on this eventually, talking about how important sleep is. It's definitely an eye opener when you look at the research. Most of their stuff is done on calorie deficits, but I imagine the same rule would apply here. Probably even be more important when it comes to recomposition, as we're putting an extra emphasis on being able to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, which is not easy. So definitely need to be making sure that sleep is getting ticked off there. So 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night, and then making sure that we're managing our stress levels. Meditation, yoga, leisure activities, whatever relaxes you. For me, I like going for walks with my dog. I also, training is a good relaxation for me. I generally train on my own, and then just chilling out watching TV. Like, I'm a pretty relaxed individual as it is, so maybe for someone who's a little bit more high strung, you need to be maybe incorporating meditation, doing your saunas, or whatever relaxes you at the end of the day and facilitates a good night's sleep. You should definitely be implementing to make sure that we're ticking all boxes for this. So hope this has helped, guys. Good luck with your recomposition journey. As always, do those things like subscribe, share, all those good things. Let me know if you have any questions, especially if it's about recomping. I think it's quite an interesting topic. A lot of people think that it's sort of like impossible. I'm sort of more erring to the side that it is. I'm sort of in a bit of a recomposition phase at the moment, where I'm sort of holding at a good body fat percentage, where I'm sort of just trying to hang here and build as much muscle as I can. So I'll keep you updated on that. But I definitely think that it's something that's kind of a little bit overlooked, especially if you can get everything around it right, like lifestyle factors, training's really good, eating's going well, all of these things. If you get all of these nailed right, I think that in the right circumstances, under the right conditions, when it comes to body fat and stuff like that, you can definitely build a substantial amount of muscle without having to build too much fat with it. So yeah, guys, I hope this has helped, and I'll see you in the next one.